Okay, so now we're going to do Chapter 15. So we'll go into Section 2, scroll down to Chapter 15, click on Homework, and then click on Counts Towards Grades. We will go ahead and start with question number 1. So the question number 1 is basically just trying to get you to think about, what is the labor force, what is unemployment, and so forth. So as a quick reminder, let's just quickly review. People that are unemployed are the people that are counted anyway, are the people that are actively looking for work. And the labor force, as a quick reminder, are the people that are willing and able to work. And we have that, nice long formula for the unemployment rate, because remember, we take out, for example, people that are retired, we take out people that are in prison or incarcerated and not able to work. So the labor force doesn't include every single person in a country. And then we have, obviously, the people that are employed. So the first question, what it's asking us to do, is it's asking us what is the adult population. So just to give you an idea of what that would mean, the adult population is going to be people that are employed, people that are unemployed, and then people that are not in the labor force. So if we were to take all the people that are employed, all the people that are unemployed, and then all the people that aren't in the labor force, because remember, the people in the labor force will be included in the employed and unemployed. So the people not in the labor force would be all those other people, like the incarcerated and the retired and so forth. So that should kind of give you the hint on how to get adult population. To figure out the size of the labor force, the next part of the question, and the labor force participation rate, again, that's just a matter of doing formulas. So our labor force from this information would just be the people that are employed and the people that are unemployed, because that is what your labor force is. It's the people that are willing and able to work. So whether they have a job or not, if they're willing and able to work and actively seeking work, they're part of the labor force. So that's the employed plus the unemployed. And then to get the labor force participation rate, again, it's just formula. So to get the actual rate in a percent form, you're going to take your labor force, and you will then go ahead and divide that by your adult population, and then times that by 100, and that will be your labor force participation rate. And that will then give you that answer. And then to get the unemployment rate, that's just a percentage of the labor force that is unemployed or is not working. So again, those are the people that are willing and able to work but don't have a job, and they've actively been seeking work. So to get unemployment rate, you take the number of unemployed, you divide that by your labor force, and you'll multiply that by 100. And that should give you help on how to do this. So this question is just a nice, more practical stand on how we would actually get numbers for unemployment, the different types of unemployment and labor force and rates, and both unemployment and participation. So hopefully that should help you there. Okay, question number 2 is just some practice about unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate. So let's just do a couple. So it says, Charles, a full-time college student, graduates and is immediately employed. So the question is, what immediately happens? So immediately, if he was a full-time college student, that would mean he initially wasn't included in the labor force. But now he's graduated, and obviously he immediately actively started looking for a work. So what happened? Well, I'm going to just tell you, the labor force participation rate would increase because he joined the labor force participation. You know, he's actively started to look, so he's now considered part of the labor force. And so that would then, because he got a job right away, your unemployment rate is also going to go down. So had he not found a job right away, your labor force participation rate would have still increased, but the unemployment rate wouldn't have decreased as it is in this case, because he wouldn't have found a job. But he does find a job. So again, I'm just gonna, this would be decreases and this one would be increases, just so you can kind of see. Okay, Dina is on maternity leave and will resume working in 2 months. So this is asking what happens, and if this is one of those little details that this is kind of, you'd almost think of this as like somebody being put on hold. So when people are absent from a job because of maternity leave, this does not affect the number of people employed, the labor force, or the population, the adult population, because of how maternity leave is counted. So if it doesn't impact any of those things, what do you think is going to happen to these? You have an option for stay same. Okay, the next one says, Gilberto has a birthday, becomes an adult, and starts working in a restaurant. Okay, so it says he becomes an adult and starts working in the restaurant. So what has happened in this situation is the number of people, it's kind of like that first question. I think you should be able to do this. He's joined, he was obviously too young to work, but now he's joined the labor force. So what's going to happen to the labor force participation rate? And then given that he immediately finds a job, and remember, he's now included in labor participation rate, or what's going to happen to his unemployment, or to the unemployment rate? I think you'll be able to do that one. Okay, we'll continue on. I'm going to say okay. Okay, what's question 3? Okay, question 3 is trying to get you to actually just kind of think about this. So it says, between January 2010 and January 2016, the U.S. employment increased by 12.1 million workers. Okay, so employment increased by 12.1 million workers, but the number of unemployed workers declined by only 7.3. So this is a true false, I guess, yeah. The labor force, it says, was decreased. So it's asking you, did this employment going up by 12 million while unemployment went down by 7.3, what does it mean? And just as a reminder, your labor force is, remember, a combination of employed and unemployed added together. So if the labor force grew by 4.8 million workers, what is that going to do? And how are we getting that labor force has gone up by 4.8 million? Well, employment went up by 12.1 and unemployment declined by 7.3. So that difference there is 4.8 million workers. So what do you think? Is this true or false with that difference of 4.8? I think you should be able to do that. And let's see, do we have another one? Yes, we do. Okay, so question number 4, it's kind of like the second question we were just looking at, but only it's looking at unemployment rate and unemployment population ratio. So quick reminder, the unemployment rate is your unemployed divided by your labor force, and you multiply it by 100, that's to get that percent rate. And then if you take employment population ratio, what you do is you take the employed, divide it by your adult population, and times it by 100. So again, in order to make sense of what this is being asked here, you have to use the unemployment rate, which again, I'm going to repeat, unemployment divided by your labor force times by 100 to get in percent. So that's your unemployment rate. It's unemployed over labor force times 100. And the employment population ratio is your employed, so the number of employed divided by your adult population times by 100. So this question here is just giving you a bunch of different scenarios, and you have to figure out, what happens. So let's do first one. It says many previously laid off workers find jobs in new startup firms as the economy expands. So what is going to happen to your unemployment rate? So these people are now, they were laid off, but they're finding jobs. So I think this is pretty obvious here. What's going to happen to your unemployment? Well, these people weren't working, now they are. So your unemployment rate in the first one, we'll just do it, will decline. And then it's asking, and what's going to happen now to your employment population ratio? Well, if the number of people employed now has gone up, because they're not unemployed anymore, but now they're employed, then your employment population ratio is going to have to increase. And so what you're going to want to do on this is just kind of go through each scenario, and if you just kind of take your time, again, thinking about what is unemployment and what is employment ratio, I think you'll get the gist of it. And a little note, you probably can see it here, but if your unemployment is going down, your employment ratio has to be going up, because they're in basically opposites of one another, if you like. And let's see, I'm not sure if we have another one. No, so that would be it. So I hope that helped, and that was it for what chapter is this? 15.